My guest appeared to have it all. The owner of a successful real estate marketing firm, a happy marriage, the respect of peers, and a thriving career. But she was living in a stronghold of denial, suffering from chronic pain, dependent on pain medication, and her marriage was failing. MaryAnne Connor is an overcomer. Today, she's helping to change the lives of thousands, and it is a joy to meet the founder and director of NightShift Street Ministries from Surrey, BC. Thank you so much for coming, MaryAnne. Having learned your story, I was excited that we get to share you today. And this is a great seasonal story that starts in a snowstorm and becomes a movement. How did that snowstorm in January 2004 launch all of this?
I think miracles start to happen that first day when I arrived from White Rock into Surrey and literally collided with 35 people that first night from the street. And the first shift start to happen when I connected with hearts that were really no different than my heart. And the stigma that I'd had with people who were addicted, were struggling with poverty and homelessness and mental illness, that I was quite frankly not proud to say now, terrified of. The movement started when I fell in love with the people that I had met and realized that we had a common denominator, and the common denominator was pain, loss, and grief.
It's interesting that you had, with your amazing skills, raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for charities.
Yes.
And you had a concern on this coldest night in 7 years for those who were out on the street, but you didn't really want to get your hands dirty.
No, I did not. I thought I had a great idea and had talked to Pastor Steen Larson. I thought the idea would be that you would open the doors of your church. Great idea, word from God, and see you later. I'm heading back to my warm bed in White Rock. And you know, he, in his wisdom, grabbed the keys to the building and dropped them into my hand and said, I will agree for you to do this on one condition, that you're in charge. And I was terrified, literally. I was so, you could have asked me to jump off the bridge because I had no context, I had no experience with this culture, with these people. And you know, there it was. I didn't want to get dirty. I didn't want to get messy. I certainly did not want to spend time in an overnight shelter with people who I thought were going to kill me, honestly. And look what happened. It was my shift.
You thought, hence the book, The Shift, the true story of how one businesswoman left everything behind and changed the lives of thousands. We're going to find out just how multifaceted this business that you had no identification with has become a gift to our nation. I've asked permission to go here because the book does.
Okay.
You thought you had nothing in common with these wounded people who'd lost everything. Your father died when you were 13. 2 years later, you were pregnant, became a teenage wife and mother. At age 26, you lost your third child at 7 months. 1 year later, your first husband was murdered. Your second marriage failed after 13 years. You had 3 surviving children with a mom in survival mode, a mom who'd been stunningly successful. I just found out from your friend here in our studio that you are former Miss Teen Nova Scotia. You had a modeling agency. You've been involved in media as well as, you know, the housing market. You were on the brink of having your own cable TV show. What was God doing in connecting you on that frosty night with these people who had nothing?
I think he has a calling on all of our lives. I think he has a plan, as he says in Jeremiah 29, a plan and a purpose for all of us. And I kept running from his call and literally negotiated with God, not this year, next year, not this. And he had called twice. I mean, I didn't hear the audible voice, but I felt the nudge. I call it the nudge. And it wasn't until that third, in the snowstorm, that I knew without any doubt that this was it. And if I didn't say yes, he wasn't going to ask me again. So I felt like I didn't have a choice. And when you step into that and step into knowing in your knower that God has called you to do something, then the fear goes away. It becomes possible because God can do the impossible, even with someone like me.
It's like Mary, the mother of Jesus, with that unfathomable news. And then she was able to say, hey, be it unto me according to your will.
She said yes.
God has spoken.
Her yes changed the world, basically.
And let's be clear, you were a Christian,
Yes.
MaryAnne. This was about surrender. That's the part of you that was holding back. You don't mind me outing you here. This was about fully relinquishing to God. And you talk about your coping mechanisms. Crazy busy was your pain remedy.
Yeah, totally. I self-medicated by busyness. And I still have a tendency to go in that direction if I'm not careful.
Well, some of that's really good, though.
Well, I guess.
Some of that.
But not to the point that, I used to say it's all about me. And it's like the Lord said to me, it's got nothing to do with you. It's all about Him. It's all about me. And you're right. I had to surrender. I was not what I would consider a surrendered Christian. I had to come to the end of myself. And when I got to that stage, then God has the power to move.
Is this where He became Papa?
Yes, that's when He became Papa.
It's a beautiful story. You have to tell us because my tissue won't rescue me. That first night, while you were making coffee in the kitchen, keeping away from these threatening people, somebody decided you should shut the night down with a prayer.
Yeah.
What happened?
I used to prayer walk over people through the night, and we would shut the lights off about 11 o'clock. And literally, they would bunk down, particularly the women with their teddy bears. It was most amazing.
Did you provide the teddy bears, or did they?
They had teddy bears. We didn't even know enough. I didn't know enough back then to even provide that. But, I was really taken back by particularly the girls that were curled up and the look of contentment on their faces. They were safe. And, that was my first shift. I realized that easily that could have been me. Perhaps one of my daughters, and that shift took place. And on this one particular night, we decided that we were going to say a prayer before, just like you tuck in your children. And we started to say, now I lay me down to sleep. And I was absolutely shocked that I would say the majority of them actually sat up and started to recite that prayer with me. So, God was moving back then in their hearts. And I don't know how they knew that prayer, but they sure sung along with us. It was a beautiful moment.
Touching.
Yeah.
You say in the book, poverty isn't just being hungry, naked, and homeless.
Poverty
That was your
is
point
soul.
of identification, your kinship with these dear broken ones. Yeah. Maybe the first place you could be authentic.
Well, I wore a mask all my life. And when I came to inner city and I met the people I met, literally one of the joys that I continue to have is I can remove that mask and be myself. And rather than be strong, because that's how I survived, I kept busy and I was strong and I would never show my emotions. The Lord I really felt, asked me to be, transparent without a doubt, and be vulnerable and share my story and how I was hurting and how broken I was. And I was absolutely shocked as I became willing and obedient to do that. People start to share theirs, and that was the common denominator. Hearts just connected, and it was, wow, I just felt like I'd come home.
There's a verse in the Message, Matthew 5, verse 8. You're blessed when you get your inside world, your mind and heart put right. Then you can see God in the outside
Amen.
world.
Yeah.
Tell us what NightShift Ministries is doing.
Wow.
I mean, we can't flesh it all out.
No.
There's no way, MaryAnne, but it's stunning.
Well, what started as a little tiny emergency shelter in a small area of the inner city it became an outreach. Within months, we started to serve hot meals from the trucks of our cars, got into a lot of trouble with the authorities in the city of Surrey doing that, not so today. And very quickly, God started to call people. Like literally, they started to show up.
40 new volunteers a month.
Oh, easily. And it's exploded. You talk about a movement, it's beyond anything that I could ever do. And maybe that's why He chose, a little girl from Halifax, Nova Scotia to do this, because I knew I couldn't do this. Only God could do this. And now we have a care bus, a medical bus that provides
dental?
We do nurses, emergency nursing. We have registered counselors on board. We have a library service. We have a full-time counseling center. I mean, it's just we have daytime programs now. Remember, we're only 13 years old. So it has taken an army of people who love God to make this happen. And the interesting thing is, I came thinking that I was going to make a change into the lives of people that I had met on the street. And God is a funny way of working things the other way. The change began with me, and the shift, I started to change. And the people who come in to serve think they're helping people on the street, and guess what happens to them? The change begins with them. So,
blessed.
you know, we're on fire.
And you're bringing a challenge because you want to see a shift in how we all perceive
Yes.
what Jesus called the least of these.
Yes. Well, you know, in that scripture, Matthew 25, he says, when you do to the least of these, my brothers or my sisters, when you do to the one, you do it as to me. So when I'm serving, whether I'm on the street or whether I'm saying hello to someone, you know, on the sidewalk or in the lineup at the bank or grocery store, I remember it's the one. Jesus he always touched the one, and I try to remember that, and I think that's what he calls all of us to do.
In your wonderful book, you challenge us to be change agents. You give 7 ways, and I just love it. Includes everything from donating clothing to a smile.
Right.
A smile somewhere you wouldn't normally be taking it this Christmas.
Yeah, yeah. And all it takes is that, not walking past a person caught in our own chaos and stress and worry, but to stop and think, God loves that person that I'm passing. What would it mean to this person if I just smiled and acknowledged? And it means the world to the person on the street, because people are spitting on them, ignoring them, and pushing them aside. And what does it take for us to just smile? And that's a shift. That'll be a shift in your own life, and definitely a shift in the person of the life that actually saw the glint in your eyes as you smiled and treated that person with respect.
Beautiful challenge. We can all do something out of the ordinary.
We have to do
this
something.
Christmas.
Yes.
You took a chance, and look what it did for you. I want to encourage you. This, you know, look at the cover of this book. And MaryAnne was just telling me that these aren't your legs, but they symbolize your legs. Many people looking at it wonder, is this Jesus?
Yeah.
And what an appropriate misappropriation.
Yeah.
Because when you made that first trip across a room in the cold,
Yeah.
in bare feet,
Yeah.
you were Jesus to those people. God bless you, MaryAnne.
Thank you.
Come back. There's more. There's so much more.
I would be delighted to come back and share some stories.
Thankfully, this book has gone bananas. The ebook on Amazon.
Yeah.
So bless yourself this Christmas and see what God does in your heart.